Welcome to Feng Shui Living, the podcast designed for busy women who want to de-stress, live with intention, and create a home that truly supports their well-being. Each week, I'll bring you practical tips, insightful ideas, and simple strategies to enhance both your home and your life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Feng Shui Living, Tips for Busy Women. I'm your host, Lisa Morton, and we're diving into a topic that a lot of people go through at least once in their lives, and that is moving. Whether it's across town, maybe to a new state, or all the way across the country, it can bring stress, overwhelm, excitement, and sometimes all those all at once. But I have an expert with me today, Colleen Hungerford. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun. Being a guest on a podcast is new for me. I have my own, and so I'm hosting all the time. So I'm sitting here being like, okay, be a guest. It's a fun experience. Thank you so much for asking me. I'm so honored to be here and to talk to you and share about this because this is kind of like so deeply ingrained in not only what I do professionally, but like my life with my family and kids and stuff like
Sure.
that.
And that's kind of why I wanted you, Colleen. I want to tell everyone I wanted you for two reasons. One is because you are a real estate expert, which I'm going to
Mhm.
get into your bio in just a moment, but you
Yeah.
also have moved a family all
Mhm.
the way, like halfway across the country, which is a
Yeah.
big thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let me do a little bio, a little intro
Okay.
on you. Colleen Hungerford is a luxury real estate expert in Carmel, Indiana, which is a suburb of Indianapolis, kind of right
Mhm.
central in the state, and the founder of Maverick Group. Beyond real estate, she's the co-creator of Inspire Her Collective, a national women's networking and business accelerator dedicated to empowering women entrepreneurs. Yeah. And
Yes.
executives. Good stuff. And then she's also the co-host. You guys have to go check out this podcast. Her podcast is We're Doing This right? It's a podcast for high achieving women that blends humor and insight into business, life, and friendship. I'm so happy you're
Yay.
here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. This is so fun. I'm so excited.
So I thought today we would talk about tips, advice, experiences to make moving smoother and also more intentional, right?
Yeah.
So if you're relocating soon, maybe you're just dreaming of a fresh start, or maybe you know
Hmm.
someone who's in the middle of packing and moving. Gosh, I have worked with so many clients lately who are moving and a lot who are downsizing massively
Okay.
from a
Yeah.
huge home to, they're kind of their kids are gone and they're in this different phase of life. My one friends are moving from a 6,000 square foot home to a 3-bedroom apartment. Like
Oh
life
my
is
God.
going to
Yeah.
change. It's mind
That's
blowing,
really hard. Yeah. That's a big difference.
right? Right. But I really wanted you to share some of your expertise, your knowledge from, again, not only helping other people, but also moving yourself. So I actually asked Colleen if she would come with some tips and advice. I have some of
Yeah.
my advice from our moves, and it's so funny. I kind of got the idea for this episode because I had a picture pop up on, they get the memories on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was our first like big corporate move for my husband's work. It was 14 years ago.
Oh my God. Okay.
And that was my first time ever experiencing, like, they come in, they pack everything. There's a semi and your whole life is fitting into this one semi. And
Yes.
you're like, oh gosh, that's bizarre.
It's so bizarre. And that reminded me of something, and I'll tell you about it, but there's a big difference between moving and packing yourself or when you have packers. So like that prep time is different. So I
Mhm.
feel like that's an important thing for us to kind of chat about because I have done both. And I have moved a lot. We moved a lot when I was a kid, just kind of moved around in not even just like interstate, like we stayed in California. But we moved homes a couple times and different. And so I feel like I am basically a professional mover. And, I went to college at a state and then I went to grad school in a different state. And then I moved, like So I've been all over. So I don't know. So one of the things that I really think when you're starting to look, and we talked about this a little bit before we came on. I moved from Los Angeles to Indianapolis about 4 years ago. And everybody's like, "What? Why would you do that?"
I think I
And
even said that to you when I met you.
literally everyone says it. They're like, their brain explodes and they can't understand. And we moved by choice. We didn't move for a job. We didn't move because we had to. We made a very intentional, talk about intentional choices. We made a very intentional choice to move to Carmel, Indiana because of a lot of reasons. I went to IU for undergrad, so I had some familiarity with the area, but we were looking for a place that was affordable. And, people who are in Indiana are going to hear this and they're going to go, Carmel's not affordable, but it's affordable compared to every other coastal city and some of the southern cities as well. We were looking for something that was affordable, that was family friendly, that gave us more space. We were really looking for more space. We were now a family of 5. At the time when we moved, we were a family of 5 with a dog and a bunny. So there was a lot of us.
How do you move a bunny?
Well, we took an RV across country with a dog and a bunny and 3 small children. All my kids were under 7. My oldest was 7. My middle was 5, and my youngest had just turned 3, like literally. So they were just babies. And a mid-sized dog and a bunny, and it was an adventure. Okay, but I think, when we were looking for very specific things, and I was scared moving from a big city to what I considered a smaller city, smaller town. Indianapolis is like a mid-sized city.
Yeah. Doing all the good stuff. This is Whole Foods.
Yes. Okay. So this is it. This is the tip. So one of the things that I was looking for when you're moving from somewhere that you don't know, like maybe it's a corporate move, maybe it's even like from a city to a suburb kind of move. One of the things that I don't hear anybody talking about this, but one of the things that I did, because I was scared that there was going to be nothing around. I was like, okay,
you're gonna have to go to like the farmer's market and pick
I'm
your
gonna have to go
apples.
pick my own corn or something like that. Like, so I was like, okay, do they have a Whole Foods? And that was just, you could pick anything. Like you could pick Kroger, you could pick, Fresh Time or whatever it is. But I was like, oh my God, if they have a Whole Foods, then I know something about that area. One, I know that there's a certain demographic that is in that area, monetarily wise, health wise, right? Like there were just simple things, like we eat a lot of organic. So I was like, that's important to me. Can I get the things that I need? That was really what I was looking for. Now, do I even shop at Whole Foods regularly? No, I don't. But for some reason, this was like the thing that was going to make it okay for me.
But I mean, that really says, there's probably a yoga studio nearby. There's probably a nice park to get outside and walk. There's other, health and well-being vitamin shops nearby. So if that's your vibe, then you're going to have other things to support you.
Absolutely. And it was totally true too. And then the other thing, and we talked about this a little bit, was like, I looked at all the coffee shops around the area, and like, I remember people were giving me so much like crap. I don't know if I can say crap on your podcast, but they were like, is there even oat milk in Indiana? Like, do they even have oat milk lattes? And I was like, I don't know. And so I went to the different coffee shops and I literally like looked at them on Instagram and like looked at their menus and looked at things just to find things for me that were going to feel familiar. I don't even like oat milk lattes, but it was something that was going to make the experience feel familiar, kind of like touchstones, like things that I could go back to.
I love that. I used to do, back when I did aircraft design, I did tons of international travel. I don't care where you go in the world, there's always a Starbucks. And if I was ever exhausted, homesick, just having a bad day, I found a Starbucks and I had that same coffee and it basically tasted the same. And it's like, it's all okay.
Yeah, there's a comfort level to that, right? So that's kind of one of my tips is just look for the things in the area that feel familiar to you, and find the things so that when you're going there, like when you're going to that city, that you can kind of have as a touch, even if it's a Starbucks, right? Like just as a kind of a touchstone for that.
I like that.
So
Now
I
I'm a
love that.
big fan of local coffee shops, and India's great,
Likewise.
great coffee
Yes.
shops.
Yes. And
But
they have tons of oat milk lattes here.
there you go.
Okay. Tons of them. It was so funny.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. That's a really good one. I really do like that because we have a lot of listeners that, are all over the country, around the world. And so come to Indiana, come hang out with
oh my
Colleen.
God, come
Colleen will
hang
help
out
you
with
find a
us.
beautiful home.
Oh my God, it's so funny. I tell people, I was like, don't worry, it's cool here. There's so much stuff to do. And they were like, I don't believe you. But, we were really willing to take that quote unquote risk of like it being boring because we were in a stage of our life where we're like, listen, we are parents of 3 children. We're not really doing anything cool. We're like the cool thing we're doing on Saturday is going to soccer. So we were willing for it to be boring. And then we got here and we were like, oh my goodness, there's a great food scene here. Anyway, this is not an infomercial for Indianapolis, but it could be because it's fabulous here.
I love
So
it.
much to
I
do.
love it. Well, let's talk about like
Okay.
preparing to move. So I'm big in advising people to really set your expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Things are gonna go wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
Things are gonna go wrong. I remember one time my husband, we had this table we put our keys and his wallet and everything in, and the movers packed everything. And he's like, I don't have my keys. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. We were all like, you gotta be kidding, right?
Yeah.
So they had to unpack tons of stuff,
Oh
get him
my
in there,
gosh.
open up the wrapping to get his car keys. Like, who does that? But
Well, okay,
yes.
so
But
to that, when you have corporate movers, here's my tip for corporate moving. Like, and I only had this happen. We only did a corporate move once, and I had just had our first baby, so she was 3 months old. So I didn't really know how to prep for that, and we were just moving from San Francisco to LA, so I was kind of like, it's not that far, whatever. But I didn't know that they literally just take everything as is. And so if you're doing a corporate move, you really have to prepare for that. I had a girlfriend who works for the State Department, so she moves quite a bit. And she was like, no, you have to lay out all your glassware on the table in order of how you want it packed. You have to like lay out everything exactly how you want it, exact in piles of how you want it, right? They'll do all the packing, but you have to organize it all before. And to your keys story, like I remember unpacking and finding a bowl full of change that they had just like picked up and packed. And I was like, oh, okay. Like,
funny.
or like to find your junk drawer just like in paper is like kind of a weird thing. So if you're doing a corporate move and you have packers, which I do, or even if you hire packers, which I do recommend,
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely prep work that goes into that before they
But it
come.
is way easier.
Oh my, it's way easier. But don't expect that they're just going to show up to your house and you're going to be like, yay. I mean, you can do
Go
that.
for
I
it.
did do
Yeah,
that. It was not fun on the other end when with the unpacking.
right. So let's talk more about tips to prep your kids. Like, how did you even,
Yeah.
what conversations did you have?
They were so little. So, those conversations are different, I think, based on age. I think we tried to get them as excited as possible, like, and figure out the things that they were going to be excited. We were moving from, um, our house in LA, which was about 1,300 square feet, and there was a lot of us. And um, we moved COVID, so at one point we had to create a classroom in our house, in our 3-bedroom house. So we had our primary, and then we had a classroom, and then all 3 kids were in one room. They were very little, but they were all in one room. So we were busting at the seams. So we were kind of prepping them in ways of like trying to get them excited. We were like, you're all going to get your own room, and we're going to, have a big backyard, and we're going to, like things that they could understand and comprehend and really look forward to versus really being like, we tried not to stress them out because it is stressful as it is, right? But we weren't like, don't be scared. It's going to be fine. We really tried to just focus on the positives. And again, they were 7, 5, and 3. So like my 3-year-old doesn't even remember. He's 6 now. he doesn't even remember living in LA, you know.
Okay.
Um, but we were really trying to prep them just with excitement and really trying to get them to understand, like, we're moving to a different place. You're going to go to a different school. I showed them the
Okay.
website of the school. We really tried to get them excited about those things. So really just positively reinforcing those aspects that were going to feel fun and exciting for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when things started to come up, like, they were upset about leaving their friend, mostly my daughter, right? Like she was upset about leaving her friends. And,
Yeah.
we made sure that we talked about that. We made sure that we did like pen pal letters back and forth. We did a lot of FaceTimes with friends to start. And eventually those friendships stay, but also, you start to make new friends and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel as intense. So, she went right into second grade. So it allowed her to kind of create new friendships, create a community in her school. And I think that helped. I think the move for the three of them was hardest on her because she was a little bit more
Okay.
established.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Sure. It
Yeah.
has to be hard as a mom to see that. But
Yeah.
also seeing the new opportunity, making
It,
new friends, meeting new
yes.
people, new experiences for them.
Yeah. And we got them right into activities. That's the other thing that I would recommend is if your kid find the activities that your kids like to do. My daughter rides horses, so we got her into a barn right away, right? I signed my middle son up for soccer in February because that's when we had to. We didn't move until July, but we were prepping ahead of time, and I signed him up
Brilliant.
for a soccer that was literally 35 minutes from our house. I had no idea, right? But because I didn't have any perception of time, and 20, 30 minutes for us in LA was like not a big deal. But here it well, once we got here, it felt like a big deal. But it was something that he could join immediately, right? So we kind of
Yeah.
set up those normal routines for the kids as um, quickly as possible when we got here. And that took a lot of prep. So the other tip that I will tell you if you are a parent moving to a new city or new town is check social media, check a Facebook page. And I joined a ton of moms groups local to the cities that we were living in.
Brilliant.
And I got to ask a lot of questions. I got to ask questions about pediatricians. I got to ask questions about sports activities. I got to ask questions about dentists, things like that. Um, there are really specific rules with the fair housing law that your realtor can't help you with.
Hmm.
And so I always kind of guide my clients to say, like, here's a couple just mom groups in the area or parenting groups. Join them and ask those questions because of fair housing laws, like I can't tell you about demographics of a neighborhood. I can't tell you
Hmm.
about age groups of the families that are, or if there are families living there. We have to kind of
Hmm.
um, obviously abide by those rules and then also figure out a way that my clients can get the answers that they want, right? And this is
Hmm.
a great way. And this is what I did. I joined, like Carmel Moms Group. I joined Indianapolis Moms Group. I joined Fisher's Mom. Every city around, I joined all the moms groups. And it was also a great way to just kind of like see what was going on in the areas and get to
Okay.
understand things.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really good. So, well, let's take it on a step forward now and
Okay.
talk about. So you did the move,
Yeah.
you moved in the RV, the
Yeah.
semi went, the movers, or
Yeah.
maybe you drove the U-Haul. I don't know how people do that because I don't do well on long drives, especially in like a big U-Haul. I can't
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
But you did the move and
Yeah.
now we're at our space, right? One thing I always think about is really as you're unpacking, of course you want to declutter and filter what you take with you,
Hmm.
but also think about as you're unpacking, like, is this serving you? Like moving to a new environment is so powerful for
Yeah.
a reset of your habits, your routines, just an energetic reset of your body. So it's a great time to take on something new, a meditation practice, walk every day.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to start cooking more, right?
Hmm.
And so really be intentional as you're taking things out to notice, is this supporting me? Or
Yeah.
is it not supporting me in those next steps, those next goals that I'm working towards. Did you experience anything like this when you were unpacking?
I think it's a time where you get to be a little bit, there's a little mix of getting to be a little bit aspirational, right? Like I was like, oh my God, we're gonna move into this new house and I want all of my drawers organized. So when I, my kitchen, so I got all the organizing things and whatever. And that wasn't something that we had before, right? It was kind of just like, well, everything was everywhere. So we got to be a little bit aspirational and what you're talking about, a little bit more intentional about what we wanted when we were setting up our house. So, like I wanted to have a really organized utensil drawer. I wanted to have a really organized, like
I love it.
whatever all those other things are, those other kitchen utensils
Bins,
are.
the cubbies, the
Yeah.
containers, the organizers.
Yeah, and I am a big fan of now, and sometimes I get this from my clients is hiring somebody, like you, Lisa, who will come in and help you kind of very intentionally set up your home. Or sometimes people need an organizer, whatever it is, but really
Mhm.
getting professional help, which sounds weird, but you know what I mean, like getting professional help when you
Getting an
come,
expert, right?
getting an
You can't
expert to
do
come
it
in.
all. Like you can't do it all.
No.
There's so many times I just suggest to my client, get a cleaning lady
Yeah.
for a couple hours, one day, one time, because all these women they want to have that badge that I do it all, but you
Oh,
just can't.
I don't want to do it
Get the
all.
help.
I give everyone permission to not have to do it all. Okay. Like I'm a big fan there's a book by a man named Dan Sullivan called Who Not How. And I am a big fan of who not how. So it's finding the who, finding the person to do it for you versus figuring out how to do it. And especially if you're like a busy lady, busy woman, busy mom, any of those
Mhm.
things, like that is totally, you need a Lisa to come in and help you set up your home. You need an organizer to come in and set up your kitchen drawers so that they function because guess what? They know all of these things way better than I do and way better than
Mhm.
most people do.
Yeah. That okay. Well, and also if you guys are listening and you are in India, I do have a lot of indie regional listeners and you need some advice. I have a list. I'm sure Colleen would share a
Yeah,
list of great
absolutely.
resources for you. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is something that I'm really passionate about is cleansing the energy of this space. So hopefully the house is spick and span, the new
Yeah.
home, the new apartment. If not, clean it, deep
Clean
clean,
it. Yes.
hire a cleaning crew, right? I love cleaning crews because they can do it so well and so fast. I swear they know these tips and tricks to get everything
Yeah.
spotless, and it takes me like 3 times as long.
Yeah. And it's literally their job. Like that's what they do like
I
regularly,
know.
right?
Yes, they know how to do it so fast. And so get that done, but then energetically cleanse the space. So you can do this very easily. But what we're trying to do is shake up the energy in the environment and get rid of anything that's not going to support us. Energy collects in spaces over time. This could be energy from someone who was ill in the home.
Hmm.
Maybe there was a lot of divorces that happened in a home. I see that very often. People are struggling in their relationship, and we dive in, and there were like 3 divorces in the house before them.
Oh my
Think
God.
about that energy building, right? So it's very important to clear that out. Loss of a family member, a pet, like all those emotions fill the space. So we have to reset when our fresh, new family, we're having a fresh start, we're moving in. So take some time to do some sort of energetic space clearing. And that can be as simple as opening the windows
Hmm.
and maybe reciting a mantra, a prayer, a poem, something just to really greet your home and get the fresh air flowing through. If you want to go deeper, burn some white sage, some Palo Santo, maybe some sound tools like a singing bowl or something. And then I do offer my distance space clearings too. If anyone wants help with that, I can
Love it.
do the whole thing for you. But I think that's just a very important part that people don't think about. They're excited to get in and
Yeah.
get all set up. You have to like rinse it out. So that to me is really important. What's something else that you'd recommend, Colleen?
Well, it's so funny you said that because I actually saged my home before we started unpacking, and I've never done that before. But I had there were creepy vibes in my house, and the transaction was not an amicable one when we bought the house. And so I was just like, there's bad energy in here. And I didn't super know what I was doing, but I was like, listen, we're going to do this and it's going to be great. So I think even if that feels like out of people's comfort zone, and I don't know, just do it. Like, what do you got to lose? Nothing,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Um, I think the biggest thing, and we were talking about this, is when you move to a new place, and this has a lot to do with relationships, because that's kind of something that I'm really good at, is creating relationships in new places. We moved from California to the Midwest, and I had this expectation that someone was going to bring me a pie. I literally was like waiting for one of my neighbors to bring me a pie. Like, cause you hear about like Midwest hospitality and all this stuff. I literally did not get a pie. No one brought me a pie. I have received zero pies to this day. And, but it was like, okay,
Somebody's going to show up on your doorstep now with a pie.
I know somebody sent me a pie, but I'm gluten free. So me, just
Okay.
but anyway, so we had to go out and start to meet our neighbors. And I think this is my biggest tip for people who are moving into a new area, even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable, even if it feels a little bit out of your comfort zone, you're going to have to be the initiator. You want the neighborhood to scoop you up. And if you're very lucky, there will be people doing that. But I think you have to go in with the expectation that you're going to have to go and meet your neighbors. You're going to have to go and introduce yourself. You're going to have to be the one who goes to the events and says hi to people and takes the risk and invites them to coffee or whatever.
Right? Like so many times I feel like the weird lady, like inviting someone to coffee, but you just have to try 2-3 times as hard.
Yes. I think it's like you just have to put a little bit more energy into that initially, because you're moving into somebody else's neighborhood, somebody else's normal space, right? Like, and they're used to their normal routine, and now you're a new person in that normal routine. So I think it becomes very difficult if you're not willing to do that, right? Like if you're not willing to go out and say hi, or you're not willing, it can make it very lonely, and it can make it very hard to create relationships. I think when you have kids, it's a little bit easier, I would say, because you've got these built-in relationships with, school friends and school parents or soccer parents, people you see all the time. But you have to lean into that. So, I'm a pretty outgoing person, but I'm a pretty outgoing person because of necessity, right? Like I wouldn't say that that's how I am by nature. But necessity, like I said, I moved a bunch as a kid. I moved schools a bunch as a kid. So when you're the new kid, it's like you can either be the weird new kid or you can be the cool new kid who like talks to people, right? So it's kind of like figuring out how to do that if that's out of your comfort zone.
Something I always found was a yoga studio, because
Oh yeah.
I'm like, yogis are always friendly and you can
Yeah.
walk in and be like, I'm the new girl, and they'll take you in. So like find your hobby. Maybe you like to do pottery, find a pottery studio, right? Like
Yeah.
find those connections. Even, it's great to have, connections with your kids, but you also as an adult just probably want, your own connections and
Yeah.
get into your hobbies and things in your new environment. So,
Yeah.
and I also think people love to kind of take you under their wing. One of my favorite questions is, what's your favorite restaurant?
Yeah.
And people want to tell you all about their favorite restaurants. And then at the end of the conversation, be like, let's go sometime. I'd love to treat you to dinner. And next thing you know, you have a friend.
Yeah. And I think to that point, Lisa, I think that's a really great point, is you have to be the one asking questions about other people, not waiting for them to ask you about yourself. Everybody wants to talk about themselves. So if you are asking people about themselves, they'll talk to you all day long.
Yeah.
Right. And you'll find some sort of commonality there somewhere. And if you
I
don't,
think
then that
they
person,
love to just like share about their city where they live.
yeah,
Most people are pretty proud and they're like, we have the best, taco place here, and go
yeah,
here for margaritas. And
yeah, for sure.
all right. So I have one, like now we're moving into the part where you're like in, you're getting unpacked, you're finally feeling settled.
Hmm.
My favorite tip for all my clients is to connect to the Feng Shui wood element. So in Feng Shui, we have this 5 element system: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And it really describes how energy flows through a space. And when we can bring in the wood element, we can really find grounding, and it almost propels us forward, right? It's all about rejuvenation, renewal. So what I love to do is gift my clients who are moving with a plant, a green plant of sorts.
Oh, okay.
It helps us connect with our environment faster.
I love it.
And you have that new little friend to nurture and love on. It just, yeah, it works really well. I've gifted this. It's been a nice little gift option for me when I have a client moving.
Yeah.
I've also taken this on myself. And when you have the green plants, they're pretty magical. So if you don't have a green thumb, if you have, maybe some people travel, they just don't want to take on a plant, you can also bring the wood element in through um, like any type of wood, like a wood coffee table, right? Like bring
Oh,
in
okay.
some more wood elements. Maybe you're moving into a home with lots of beautiful hardwood floors.
Yeah.
That's great. You can also bring in the color green,
Okay.
and also artwork depicting a forest or a bouquet of flowers, or maybe you want to gift yourself a bouquet of flowers. Something I'm big on is gifting your home with something. And this I kind of do it quarterly, but I gift my home a bouquet of flowers. If I can every week, or maybe I'll get a new plant for my home. It's just a really
I love
great
that.
way to connect with it.
That's
So
awesome.
take
I
on
also
the wood element.
I like the idea that you're gifting it to your home. I think um, that's a really nice way to just, it's interesting, right? Like I sell houses, right? Like that's kind of what I do, but that's not what I do. What I do is I help people find their home, right? And I take
That's
that
totally different, right?
a
That it's such
total,
a beautiful thing you're doing.
yeah, it's a totally different thing. And, we really work very hard to find the right home for our clients. And I love the idea of like what you're saying is almost just like making sure that you're really understanding that this building, this house is actually a living, breathing thing that is your home that you need to
Yeah.
like foster and, take care of and also love on. And I love that. I
I
love
always
that idea.
recommend people name their homes.
Okay, I'm gonna
And it
name
could
my
be
home.
something silly like an actual name.
Yeah.
Um, my home, we called it Serenity because we're out
Okay.
in the woods and it's really quiet and peaceful. But you can come up with something playful, fun. Maybe your family can get together and come up with a name. But when you can really connect with it, and my clients have worked with me and we've done a synchro alignment. This is a guided visualization process, and we actually connect with the spirit of your home and learn about it, learn about what it wants to do. We should do this sometime
Oh my
together. This
God, I
is
would
so fun.
love that. That sounds
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah.
I love it. I just
It's a
think
nice
there's
way when you can think about, go ahead.
Oh, I just think, when you're moving into somewhere, you work so hard to turn this house into a home really quickly, especially, like especially if you're moving somewhere um from out of state. Like that was very intentional. Like I really wanted this to feel like home for us, for me and my husband, but then also for our kids, right? And I think it's so lovely that you are offering this as something that you do to really create a connection to that space because I think COVID changed a lot for people. And we noticed that prior to moving here, I ran a construction and design firm. And what we realized, we were super busy during COVID, is that most people didn't live in their homes. They would get up, they would get ready, they would go to work, they would be at work for 12 hours, whatever it was. They'd come home, they eat, they go to bed. And if they had any time, especially because we were in LA, they were
Yeah.
outside. Right. And so they weren't living in their homes. And then all of a sudden
Mhm.
they had to live in their homes. And
With
everyone,
everybody.
with everybody. Right.
Right.
All of a sudden open concept was the worst concept ever.
Right.
Right. But what we were finding is that people were like, wow, this thing that wasn't functional for us, that didn't really bother us before is now really bothering us. And people really started to live in their homes. And I think people in the Midwest live in their homes a lot more than people on coastal cities. Like um, the idea of entertaining in your basement was completely foreign to me, right? Because we didn't have basements. But people are living and breathing in these homes and inviting people into their homes and having parties and having sleepovers and doing all this stuff. And it's really important for that home to feel good and for you to feel good about people like coming into your home. And so
Mhm.
I love that you're doing that. That's wonderful.
Mm. So important just to have that deep connection because then it supports you as you're going about trying to do your things, right?
Yeah.
Because we all want to be Wonder Woman and do all the things and reach all our goals. So
Yeah.
having that little extra support is always nice.
Yeah.
What
Wonderful.
other tips do you want to share? Anything else?
Oh my God. I mean, there's a million things that we could talk about. I think, when you're talking about moving to a different area, I think it's important to have somebody who's from that area. Like obviously I had a realtor when I moved here, but I also had my girlfriends with me, which by the way is like a realtor's worst nightmare when you bring like a billion people because everybody's got an opinion, but I don't. I
Right.
love it. And I think it was so important. And to this point of, when I moved here, I was really looking for a huge yard. That was really important to me. And I had my girlfriend say like, Colleen, that's great, but you're only going to spend maybe 6 months in that yard, right? So let's think about making sure that you have a basement so that when it's
Mhm.
winter, your kids can play, you have a place for your kids to play in the winter, right? Or have a playroom or
Good.
something like that. So I think it's really, we talk about like finding a local expert or finding somebody, but finding somebody and finding a realtor who understands or willing to understand what your life is like. And when you're looking for a home, like be willing, have that person really understand what you need and want, maybe even more than you do, right? Because my girlfriends
Mhm.
knew
That
way more
that's
than
a
I
key. I think a really good agent, a really good real estate agent will know more what you need than you actually do. I remember when we bought our little house down in Florida. That's not no longer
did.
there,
Oh,
but
yeah.
um that's another day, another topic. Um we actually bought it sight unseen, which is
Hmm.
something I would never do.
Yeah.
But we had a bunch of rental properties. We flipped them. We had a very limited window. We had to buy something, right?
Okay.
And it
Yeah.
came down to like 3 days later, right? That we had to have this done. So we bought this place, but I was so nervous. But our agent knew even better than what I
Hmm.
knew of
Yeah.
what was appropriate for us.
Yeah.
It's the sweetest little place. Definitely needs some quirks, needs some quirky upgrades. I mean, it was a 60s ranch. It had the original blue bathtub, which was polished and
Yes.
beautiful and groovy and fun.
Yeah.
But there are a few things that needed help. But I always say that he knew better than I knew
Yeah.
what we needed. So find a really good agent,
Yeah.
find someone you can trust. What do you have tips for finding just the right person? Because I know sometimes
Yeah.
you kind of got to weed through and
You do. One, you can always reach out to me. I have a huge network across the country. So if anybody,
perfect. Perfect.
honestly, like I'm not saying that as any kind of weird plug. I literally know people in almost every state that I trust and have vetted that I would recommend to my family. So one, if you're
Nice.
moving, call me. I'll find you somebody. Two, I think you really need to, if you're relocating, right? I think you need to find somebody who is an expert in relocating because that is different. That's a
Okay.
huge difference than just a local expert because, and I always say to my clients, like, I've done this before. Like, I know what it's like to relocate and it's hard. And here's all
You
the
know the
different
ugly
things.
cry moment,
Oh my
right?
God. Do you know the moment where you're like, in the middle of Kansas with an RV and your husband had to fly out for a job interview and you are all of a sudden a mom with 3 kids and a dog and a bunny in the middle of Kansas with an RV and your SUV towed on the back and you're doing it by yourself. I've been there. Literally, it was insane. I drove across all of Kansas by myself with these 3 children. But, and I'm not saying every realtor has to have that experience, but I think you have to find somebody that you really connect with. You have to find somebody that is willing to understand you. So interview. It's more emotional. It's more relational than you expect. So I would say like, ask whatever questions you want to ask about compensation and X, Y, and Z, and definitely do that. But I think you really have to trust this person literally with your life because they are your eyes and ears and boots on the ground if you're moving out of state. Or even, like if I were to move to Fort Wayne, I wouldn't know anything about that, right?
Exactly.
And here's my other thing and this is no shade to anyone, but a lot of people will get like, well, I was born and raised here, so I know everything about this area. And I will counter that with, there are a lot of people who are born and raised in an area who have preconceived ideas set in stone about an area, about a city, that might not be in your best interest, right? So I always said to my clients, like, I actually moved here and I had to do all this research. So this neighborhood, while, 30 years ago was a quote unquote not a good neighborhood, is now actually a great place to be. And here's why, right? So don't just, I don't want to say fall for, but don't fall for this idea of like, well, I was born and raised in the city, so I know it. Find somebody who really is up to date on everything that's going on in the city and up to date on the market. That's my spiel.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Who knows where the Whole Foods are? Who knows where the good coffee is?
Exactly. And find somebody who, now a lot of times like Instagram is our billboard, right? Like find somebody who is doing the things that you like to do in a city, right? Oh. And who you feel relational to.
Wow. Okay. Well, how can people find you online?
Oh my God.
If they want to follow you on Instagram, go listen to your podcast too.
Yeah.
Give them all the details.
Okay. So you can follow me on my Instagram. It's Colleen Hungerford, just at Colleen Hungerford, 2 L's, 2 E's in my first name. Or you can follow our team, which is at Maverick Group Real Estate. I have a podcast called We're Doing This Right, and we're on everywhere you can get a podcast. We're also on Instagram, and it's at Doing This Right Pod. If anybody's interested in being in a women's network, national women's networking group, we Inspire Her Collective is a national women's networking group that we started a little over a year ago. We're in our second cohort now, and we're in Denver, we're in Central California, we're in Charleston, and we're here in Indy, and we're expanding. And we have a wait list starting for all members across the country. So if that's something that interests anybody, we would love to have you join.
Okay, I will put links in the show notes.
No, there's so much.
Oh my gosh, but it's so great. And I want everyone to have access to it. I will put in the show notes. Also, newsletter subscribers will get a list as well, and all the contact information. Colleen, thank you so much for joining me and hanging out today.
Thank you. This is fabulous. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, friends, we will see you at our next episode. Take care. Special thanks to our sponsor, Elevated Living School of Holistic Design and Feng Shui. For more information, head over to the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share this episode with a friend. We'll see you next time.